Hey, welcome to the Runaways podcast. My name is Cody. We just got back from Pro Tour. Some of us just got back yesterday or the day before from Amsterdam, and we are going to talk about that. So today I am joined, you can see, well, if you're watching this video, you can see there are 4 people on this podcast. I was told countless times in Amsterdam that people want more people on the podcast. They like when we have multiple guests and different guests. And now that we're not practicing all the time, I do not feel irresponsible of tearing people away from their Pro Tour prep to get them to come on the podcast. So we listened. Here we are. And today I am joined by Pheano, who had a pretty great run at Pro Tour. I am also joined by Noah. And then, as always, it's Dan, the guy who always agrees with me. Or so I was told multiple times over the weekend. But starting this off, Pheano, you want to talk a little bit about your Pro Tour run? You did have a pretty good one. You were sitting at the top of the tables for most of the time you were there.
I actually kind of wish you pulled me away from some of my prep. I think that would have been better for my mental going into the weekend. I was not having a good time testing for this event. Had a few nights where I rage quit on you in Discord.
Just a couple.
This game. Had a good run. Prism carried me. I just ooga booga. I'm gonna draw a million cards, and oops, you can't win the game anymore. So yeah, Prism carried me pretty hard for this event. Did okay in draft. I think I kind of trapped myself in my second draft by taking a card and then trying to draft around it, and then I think that was wrong in hindsight. But it's one of those ones that's I wish I had the draft log of it, because I think it was a really interesting draft to look at, but that doesn't help now.
To be fair, you were going to play Azalea most of the prep. You were sitting there. I was working with you at least half the time on working on Azalea. And then 3 days before, we're just this deck cannot beat Zen. Azalea just can't beat just us internally. We could not beat each other. Obviously you can beat Zen, depending on how the runs work, but we just couldn't do it internally at all, especially with our Zen deck. The night before Pro Tour, I sat with James, who also played Azalea, and I beat him 8 games in a row. He was just well, I feel good about my deck choice tomorrow, but then he beat every Zen he played against almost, so, who knows what internal testing actually means. But you decided 3 days to go. I'm out. I'm switching to Prism. It seemed to work out.
I did not feel good about that testing, but at least it was just the one matchup I had to figure out. It was just Zen. So I just needed to figure out my 60 for that matchup, because everything else I already put in the work. So I didn't feel too bad about it. Kind of the benefit when you mostly play one class, so you doesn't take as much learning to get up to speed on stuff. So once I had that matchup where I wanted it to be, I was okay, this is fine. This is good enough. Send it. I went into the event. My only goal was min cash. I was this meta's terrible. I'm just going to hope I'm in cash, and anything better than that's gravy. I'll be excited with that.
Yep. And then where did you end up finishing?
21st.
21st.
I'm technically on the bubble for 16, but where I got my losses, I don't think I could have gotten 16.
Makes sense. And Noah, you went a whole different route. You have played nothing but KO, I think, for it's a year at this point?
Basically since he came out, yeah. I've just been nonstop grinding KO.
So it's just been endless KO. You decided once again, you're loading back up the scab boots. You're going to go in with KO again. How do you feel about your choice playing KO?
So a little bit of backstory is before the event, I had managed to acquire an entire Zen deck, because I was okay, I know there's a significant chance that I pivot off of this, make a smart choice. I'm usually one who before an event is always coaching people that hey, play what you know, play what you have experience on. It's better than switching to what could be construed as the best deck. If you don't play it well, you won't do well. But I think this was definitely an event to break that rule, where Zen was just so much better than KO that I should have switched to it. I knew this from literally round 1 of the tournament. I played against Peter Bedensic, notorious Kano enjoyer. He rolls out his Kano mat. I'm oh, okay. This is not that bad for KO. It kind of sucks to start the tournament pairing into Kano. And then he tells me he's playing Zen, and I was oh no. If he was willing to change off of his hero, I probably should have changed as well. So yeah, that was not an inspiring start to my tournament run, losing to someone who clearly just picked up Zen for this tournament. So yeah,
I almost switched to a few days prior. You were we got together IRL to do some testing, and we needed someone to be punching bag into Zen, and Noah was guy playing Zen during that, and he was like, "Huh, maybe this deck is pretty good."
Yeah, I was just like freestyling stuff on the fly, just using my knowledge of having played like Katsu in the past, a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh, learning like sequencing and stuff. That it's like pretty intuitive deck to figure out, I think. Um, so yeah, I just regret not playing it for the Pro Tour, and I think everybody who pivoted to it in the last second, even if they weren't as experienced, probably still ended up doing okay in the event.
And you were a calling boy with me on
Mm-hmm.
on the day 2. We did not have a great tournament at Pro Tour, but how your calling was pretty good, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I did make the audible to Zen after playing only 4 rounds of KO the day before. I got to play a lot of rounds of Zen. I started day 1 6-2. So that was like pretty cool. I was definitely making some egregious misplays in the first few rounds, but the deck carried me. And in day 2, my first 2 rounds of the day were into 2 news, and even with a lot of skill, I think that matchup is pretty tough. So I was like, okay, I guess it's just not in the cards for me today to top 8 this tournament. But I don't know. I kind of enjoyed playing the deck. I think I just had a little bit of like beginner's luck paired with just enjoyment of playing something that I hadn't been playing, just like a different style than what I've been playing for the past 6-7 months, like we were saying before. So I also tracked all of my ancestral harmony hits. I just like something I like doing in games that I do with KO2 is I always track all my scout skin rolls just to know like objectively am I lucky or not. And I played 32 combo cards in every matchup and hit 5 out of 13 harmonies. So I guess just objectively unlucky, I got something to complain about that's external to myself. But no, it was a fun time playing the deck. Just getting the free resource off the chest was so nice instead of having to wait for every 3 turns or cracking Sash for a one-time thing.
To be fair, I was doing the other thing. I was doing a very similar thing with my harmonies in tracking, but a little bit different. My across both tournaments, I had my harmony 6 times hit Bittering Thorns, like exactly Bittering Thorns 6 times across both tournaments, and I went, "This is just insulting at this point. Like this card, I guess, should not be in my deck. If this was any other card, I'd be juicing everyone." But Dan, you had probably one of the craziest rides. You were also the top finisher on the team, I think, at Pro Tour, as far as that goes. Tell us a little bit about your Pro Tour run.
Yeah, sure. It was a lot, man. It was such a roller coaster, but yeah, I want to go through my like abbreviated tournament report with you guys. I of course have to start before the event. So it's the eve of the ban announcement. I had just solved all the like really challenging matchups, like Boost Dash, New, Victor. I like had very solid plan. Like, this is great. This is the most prepared I've ever been for an event. I feel so good. Boom, they banned it. Banned bonds. Okay, big shakeup. I'm not doing so hot for the next week. You guys saw that live. Whatever, scrapped together the deck we ended up bringing. It's fine. Like, because of the like week and a half we have, we can't really innovate. It's just like before we were leading to bouncing links quite a lot, right? We had like these innovative strategies for matchups because we only had like a week and a half to like refine the list that we're going to practice. We just had to like do traverse only and like make one game plan consistent, right? Which I think we did a good job of. So I felt pretty good. Not nearly as practiced as I was on I like other build. Anyway, I go to Ireland on the 19th. This is what the Pro Tour's on the 26th, so 7 days early. Have a great time. Love Dublin. Dublin's such a cool city. Even had the time to Hidden Armory there, which was a good time. Shout out to all the Ireland or Dublin Flesh of Blood gamers rather. And man, that was eye-opening. I was like so rusty. I did not play well at that armory. I actually think that was like a huge benefit that I was able to do that. And it made me realize like, okay, I'm like a little rusty. Thursday night when I get in with the team, I need to talk through some things and get some practice games in and plan for that. Well, Wednesday night, we go to Amsterdam. Have a great time. I'm traveling with my wife. Have a great time. Go to bed. Wake up at like 2 a.m. I have food poisoning, which I don't realize at the time. I'm just kind of doing what you do when you have food poisoning. But basically, I'm like unable to stand or do anything for an entire like 30 hours. I'm stuck in bed. Like messaging the team I like desperately needed to talk about the deck and practice the deck, but my wife said, no, you're just going to stay in bed today, which is like, fine. The team gave me their adjustments to the deck. My wife, shout out to her. She like wrote up my sideboard notes, like made all the changes that the team made, made sure it was all accurate, and it was. That was like such a huge help. So I had that going. But yeah, I was like so sick on Thursday. It was the day before the event, and I'm like, the timeline was weird. So in the morning, I was like terrible, and then around like 2 p.m., I was like, I don't feel that bad. I think I can maybe make it tomorrow. But then by like 4, 5, 6 p.m., I was just so much worse than I was in the morning, and I was like, I came all the way here. Like I went through this band thing that ruined my life for a week, and we figured it out, and now I'm not even gonna play this event. It's just, it was so rough. But I wake up on Friday, day of the event, and I can stand up. Like that's good enough. I take a shower and I don't pass out, and I'm like, ship it. We're gonna make it. So I make it to the event, which honestly I'm just like so grateful to be there. I barely know where I am. I'm like, I feel like my head's underwater. Like I'm not feeling well at all. But I'm there and I can play like good enough. We'll see what happens. Round 1, I lose to a Victor, super nice opponent. I forget what he was from. But he like kept trying to like help me not make egregious mistakes. Like I blocked Traverse and Strides on a Spinal Crush. And he's like, this is Spinal Crush. I was like, I know, I'm playing Sick Below, but you don't know that. But he was very kind, like a perfect first opponent, like very nice, trying to help me out.
I hope you said it, but you don't know that.
I said something like I know what I'm doing here, but I appreciate it. He was just trying to like make sure communication was clear, right? Which I always appreciate. It was a pretty good game. I lose. I just like misplay the strategy because of my health and mental state. Basically, you want to like play patient and then wait to set up a combo and just block until you have like 2 combo cards. I started setting up when he's at like 30 health, and it just made the game impossible to play. So it's kind of pretty bad like strategy error on my part. But that's fine. We lose round 1. It's like I wish I was in bed. It's like we're gonna get through the day. We're gonna do our best. Hopefully, I can just like go X3 and play tomorrow and see how we do. Maybe we can cash. Second round, I play against Kano. He does 33 damage to me on my first turn. So I don't win that one. I did find a line that like gave me a chance to win. Basically, if his next hand is like 2 or more reds, I think I have a chance. It's not, and I die, and that's fine. It's like whatever. This is like what I expected with how I'm feeling and how this all went. Like I'm 0-2, it's fine. Let's just try and survive CC, and I like drafting the set a ton. Like I really love drafting the set, so I was excited about that. I win the next 2 rounds. I get like the Enigma pair, and it goes how the Enigma matchup goes. It's not particularly close, I don't think. I don't really remember at this point. And then I play against the 9 Pummel Reinhardt, which I was like fearing leading up to the event.
What?
Yeah,
this is first hearing about that.
The week before the event, we were paired into these Reinhardts that are playing like 9 Pummel, but they're still playing like maximum wild rides and pulping. So it was just like max greed, you roll scabs every turn. We were like losing on Talishar. It was very interesting. But I win that game. Things don't really line up for him. And I draw well enough. So I'm 2-2. I'm like thrilled. I'm like, wow, I survived CC. It's incredible. Like for sure the most shaky there because the deck changed and I didn't get to practice and all that. Draft 1. I have a very friendly draft pod. They passed me like a pick 4 red pouncing key, and my favorite thing to do in draft is to draft red pouncing key and then build a deck around it. So I had a nice and easy one. Like it's very easy to navigate. My deck is like completely absurd, like one of the best draft decks I've ever had. I was able to cast red pouncing key 6 times. My deck allowed. I had 3 natural copies and then 3 recursion pieces.
Okay.
I had like no bad draws. Like I didn't like draw the nuts every turn, but it was like I didn't have any like stumbles where it's like, oh, I drew 4 finishers in my deck that has 5 total. So it was like a pretty smooth 3-0. And like at the end of the day, I'm like, whoa, what the heck? I'm live for top 8. Like I barely know where I am. I don't know how I did this. And I'm exaggerating a little bit. Like round 1, I actually just like was in terrible shape. By the end of the day, like by the time draft started, I was like, I was saying I gained like 5% of my total flesh and blood power each round. So by the end of the day, I was at like 80% on my best, I'd say, and I started at like 50. I was so thrilled. I was like so grateful that I could play. So grateful. I'm live for top 8. I get another chance tomorrow. Like surely I feel a little bit better. Start day 2. I don't feel much better. I'm like, what the heck? It's like I feel like different, but still like super proud of it. But whatever. I'm live for day 2 top 8, or still live for top 8 day 2 Pro Tour. Like I'm the best I could possibly feel given the circumstance. Second draft was a bit more difficult to navigate, but the table again gave me like a pick 4 or pick 5 red pouncing key, and I obviously took that, and I got past like some more ninja stuff. It's like, all right, we're in the same lane. I like very clearly pass cut ninja. Like I opened, what was it, red key unleashed and the ninja had equipment or headpiece. So like I was like for sure making some ninjas to my left, and I was gonna have to like cut in there. So it's a little more tricky to navigate like how to prioritize. Pick 2, I basically committed to taking a bunch of mystic attacks, and like I knew I wasn't gonna get any ninja reds there. So I had this like decent Zen deck that had 20 blues and a bunch of mystic attacks. Where with that kind of build, I'm like a bit more draw sequence dependent, I think. And I do have some like really awkward draws and stumbles, and I have to like play to my outs more than the first draft. But I get there, I go 3-0. I'm like, I guess we're just gonna do this. Like we're gonna turn this thing around and make top 8 somehow. Pretty much have to win the next 2 to make that happen. First CC round, I play against Chris Ialey on Prism. That round, I realized I am in terrible shape, like health wise. Like I'm like barely keeping it together. We have like a really grindy early game. We played Tide Skippers. That's not what it's called.
Time Skippers.
What's the Time Skippers?
Time Skippers. Yeah.
Oh, we played Time Skippers, which I think was a huge difference maker for this game. My deck just like didn't give me anything. Like no power cards. It was just like 1 for 4 go again, weapon pass for like 4 turns. And he gets his obviously like his arc leg down, and I have to clean it up. Whatever. Too many details probably there. But the boots keep me in the game, and then I get to the hand that lets me close. It's great. I do everything right, and then I have a tiger at the end. I'm like, oh, I should set this for next turn to make sure my hand's more consistent. Well, I do that. I had go again, and I leave what is it, Parable of Humility on the board, the -1 aura. Just like forgot it was there. Like the plan was always to kill it. Like, so that compounds into more mistakes. I forget I don't have weapons, so I pass with like an Artivore and a Transcend card in my hand. I was just gonna like weapon to kill it and pass. It was like so bad. I was up like 20 health at that point. I was like, man, this is about right. Like I was lucky to get this far. But I'm like, it's okay, we can do this. I set the Artivore. It's like he has to have like above average here to steal the game. He just goes like Herald. It's not enough. I go Artivore for like 65 damage. And I get bailed out. So I win that one. Like, wow, okay. Next one is like basically a win in. Like it's a win and I have to win any one of the next 2. So I'm like, we got this. It's gonna be great. And then I remembered New is a deck in the format. I played against Gabe, who ends up top 8ing. Congrats to him. This game is just like terrible for my side. Like not because of how I play, I just don't get to play. Like it's like the most one-sided New game I've ever played, which is like fair game. That's what they're looking to do. I just get absolutely crushed. Still a fun game, fun opponent. But after that, I'm like pretty bummed. Like I'm probably dead. Like I should have a chance. Like it's round 12 and I just got my 3rd loss. Like surely it's non-zero, but I'm like, I was so close. Then I play against Michael Fang in the Zen mirror. Just the most absolutely ridiculous mirror I've ever played. Like so degenerate. Basically my opening blow is 2 Artivores and 500 wins. Like that's the turn. That maths to about 40 damage. It's like really silly. I guess I did a needle too because I'd have another float in there. Maybe it was 2 needles. I don't know. But that's my turn. He goes to like 3. Oh, he goes to 3. He claps back with his 1 Artivore double bonds 300 wins turn. I got a 2 and I have just enough to close. I was like, along taking, obviously, do I make the Zen state or not? It's like such a stupid game. I was like 2 turns. We both do like the highest high roll the deck can perform in very different ways. And I just barely get there. Super lucky. I'm like, wow, okay, we can do this. I look at the breakers. It's like I am completely live for top 8. If I win my next round and like Brody also wins or someone else, then I'm in. I might win the next round and finish 9th. It is what it is. And of course, I play against Boost Dash, which is like the matchup I had to concede in prep. I actually think Boost Dash is like the hardest matchup for like a traditional Zen list. I just think they are a bit too consistent on their numbers on the clock they put you on.
I didn't even realize there was a Boost Dash up there.
There were 2. Yeah, I didn't either. I was like, give me the Leviathan, please. But like, of course, it's the one I have to concede. I'm like, ugh. I didn't have like a full plan figured out, but I saw what I think made sense, and it played out well. Like, it was the most reasonable way it could have played out. Like, I draw a double Ancestral Harmony turn, which is like kind of the nuts because they play Balance of Justice, and that doesn't turn it on. And basically, the game comes down to me having to choose like, I can make a Zen state and sack like 8 points of value now, and I should get back like 8 to 10 later. But it gives me like a life buffer, so it might buy me a whole turn. Or I can do the damage now, and I'm saying if he doesn't draw his like top 20% of draws over the next 2 turns, like I should just win. And I made that choice, and he drew like just good enough. Like he drew 1 max speed turn into 1 high octane turn with like 2 to 3 reds on each. And it was like exactly enough. He took my last card that I needed to take his last card, and I lost. It was like very fair game. I was like, fine. So close. So many mixed feelings at the end. Like I finished 14th in the end, which like part of me felt incredible. Like I don't know how I pulled this off with how I felt and everything. Like I was so proud of like just getting through day 1, even just like playing the games and not going to sleep instead. But I was like a little bummed overall to like be that close. Like, I mean, it's obviously my fault. I guess I got food poisoning. Next time I'll just like, I don't even know. Just like
not eat nuts. You're supposed to not eat.
Only eat the food I bring. Like, I don't know. But what a ride.
The Brody way.
Yeah. Just why I guess that's my story for how the weekend went. Finished 14th. Great result. Top 16. We'll take it all day. But man, these events just always remind me just like how spoiled we are with this game and like the organized play program that we have.
Yep. Organized play is great. I thought you were dead after 0-2 start the day, and then you're just like, nah, I'm just not going to lose. And then you just proceed to go on a huge run, which is pretty great. There's not much for me to say. This is the first top like tier 4 event that I didn't day 2. I just can't win dice rolls this past weekend for some reason, and it kind of sucks when the meta is dependent on dice rolls in both formats. Like several draft games that if I had just won the dice roll, I just win, and then a mirror, I lost every dice roll in every mirror that I played this weekend. So pretty meh. I think personally I wasn't super happy that I brought Zen. Definitely best deck. But I felt like I was just playing the deck and I had no ability to play my opponent. I couldn't make decisions when I saw my opponent make a mistake. Like my decision was, oh, they made a mistake. Does his hand go? That's like the whole decision tree that I had. Couldn't really punish people like when I saw them like, play the wrong cards in their deck or bring not a great deck or make mistakes in the middle of the game. And I just kind of didn't like that play style on both the calling and the Pro Tour. So probably something I should consider moving forward. With that said, we did lock up one of the tournaments. We did not win the Pro Tour. We did not top the Pro Tour. We did win the calling. So for the people who don't know, Charles, if you want to see our deck list that we played, Charles won the calling with it. It's literally the exact deck list that basically the entire team brought for Zen. And I know Dan must have been freaking out because it was just Lucas and I sitting in the hotel room. Dan leaves early. Like Dan just goes off on his like early vacation with like a 3/4 finished deck. Like the deck has like only 3/4 of the deck is finished. There are no sideboards. Like there's like a pile of sideboards from the old version of the deck, but like it hasn't really been fleshed out. And he's just like, guys, figure this out. I'm out. I don't have time to play anymore.
We figured out like the current sideboards and stuff. Like what I had with me was a completely finished playable deck.
So
Like
Lucas and I,
optimal. Is what I would say.
yeah, we're missing 25% of the deck. Lucas and I are playing, and we just start slowly changing the deck. And in the back of my head, I know that Dan's just screaming because he's not here to like participate. He just has to trust that we take his baby and just like blow it up. And we're just switching cards in and out. I think we changed like 8, 9, 10 cards in the deck.
That's
somewhere
tough.
around there.
I don't know if I could trust Lucas after this cycle.
Yeah.
He was like, trust me, Azalea. He psyopsed me so hard into Azalea.
All of us. There was like half the team was on Azalea at one point because we were just trusting Lucas, and then we verified his work, and the work was terrible. But
I actually had no issue trusting you guys. Like for my mental, I had to just go to Ireland and not Flesh and Blood. Like it's fine. Whatever we play. It's not a big deal.
To be fair, Lucas verified his own work and also stopped trusting himself and was like, "I'm out. I'm going to Zen." But so we just like blow the deck up. We put a bunch of cards in the deck. We change all the sideboard plans. We go, Dan, this is what we're doing, and Dan's just like, "I'm in."
It wasn't even that. It was just I can't. I just kept falling asleep. I tried to think about like what do I want to do, and I just kept falling asleep.
But it was really cool to see Charles end up picking up the calling, playing the exact deck that we built. I think we changed like 6, 7 cards the night before the tournament because they made sense when we were just sitting down consolidating all our information. And I think the deck's pretty good in the state that it's in. A couple of changes I might make here or there going forward if I decide to play it. But overall, what were you guys' thoughts on Amsterdam as the tournament as a whole? Obviously, the winning deck being Azuri, which I don't think anyone saw at all. What are some of your thoughts on just the whole tournament experience as a whole in Amsterdam?
Yeah, I thought the venue was nice. It was pretty reminiscent of the Barcelona venue, just kind of like super open area, like I don't know, warehousey kind of style. The one negative part was I had to play some of the early rounds. I think they fixed this later on, but I had to play some of the early rounds right next to the speaker, and I just like could not concentrate at all. I don't know if any of you experienced this, where like I was just getting blasted with the announcements. Well, it's probably because I was at the much lower tables than you, Pheano, that I was at the speaker
like
tables, back of the bus, just getting blasted. but as a whole, I thought the tournament was fine. I got to play in multiple of the tournaments they offered, so I got that whole experience, fortunately or unfortunately.
The problem I was running into was there's a massive problem with glare on the table.
Oh, yeah.
There's every round a mad dash to get to the side where your back is to like the where they're doing like the casting and everything and like the feature matches. Because if you're on the other side, you literally couldn't see your opponent's board. It was just what you pitched a blue infecting. Okay. Let me wait. Which boots do you have? Just impossible to see anything. I had like 3 judge calls over the course of the weekend of just my opponent being like, I didn't know that's what you had going on your board. I blocked or attacked improperly. I would like to go back. I'm going to call a judge. And like, it goes to what you're saying earlier, Dan, about the like clear communication thing. And that was like a massive problem that I'm also running into personally with the deck that I'm playing, where I've just got so much stuff on the board. It's hard enough to keep track of what's going on to begin with, let alone with half my cards being invisible. So that was tough.
You're really not exaggerating either.
No, you're not. You literally couldn't see.
There's not much they could do about it. Like, it's not like I'm upset with them or something. It's just, it is what it was. It was funny, the one of those judge calls I had with Nick Butcher, and the judge comes over and he just kind of has this look. He's like, what are you talking about? And then he hunches down to be on the same eye level as Nick, and he's like, oh, and just had no idea that this was going on the entire tournament. He's like, yeah, we're going to rewind it to the previous state. It's just so silly. But it was a well-lit venue. Like, how can we complain about that? You know what I mean? Like, it was a nice venue.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. What are your thoughts on Azuri taking down the whole tournament?
I did have Assassin winning the event on my bingo card.
I think
I'll
everyone
say
did.
that.
Yeah, agreed. I someone in our Discord like called this. We were getting juiced like the week leading up, like these 9 pummel Reinars. But like Azuri kept beating our Zens. And I think our news as well. Like I forget who said it. Someone said like they were joking, but they said Azuri is going to win Pro Tour.
Well, Azuri just has like the more of the trickery aspect with swapping in a card, right? Where if new throws like a weakest link or CNC at you, and they've already used up their arms, like you can just fridge it for 6, but you're not throwing 6 armor in front of an isolate. So
Sometimes.
yeah, maybe it's the right play, but I think it's just more dubious because you're not sure exactly what they're going to be swapping in. So yeah, I think like Pheano said, an assassin taking it down makes a lot of sense. He wasn't able to knock them all out with his illusionist strategy, so some stragglers made it through.
I only got one new the whole weekend.
Yeah.
I also only got one Zen. Like my matchup roulette was kind of all over the place. The most common deck I faced was Azalea at 2. But one of them was cosplay Lexi. It was a Great Bow, New Horizon.
Shoma took down the tournament, which is like, it's a pretty cool, great story because doesn't he own like a card shop in Japan as well?
I think it's like Go Again Gaming or something like that.
Yep. And he came out. He made a gutsy call, taking Azuri. 20% of the field he has a 0% win rate into. There's just like looking at like the stats for Pro Tour. There are 20% of the decks that people brought. Azuri just cannot win. It's not like new where you have a chance. Like you just cannot win the game at all. But if you get to play Zen, you get to play against new, you get to play against KO, you get to play, some of the other decks like Azalea, then Azuri can absolutely win. My, favored into new, definitely favored in the new with people's current knowledge. Don't know if that ends up changing, over time. But with current knowledge, definitely favored. Definitely good into Zen. And took the risk and it paid off. And sometimes you're allowed to do that at Tier 4 events because half of it is just draft, right? There's only 8 rounds of CC, like we've talked about a bunch before. So dodging your bad matchups is completely a viable strat.
Also, like on some level, no matter what you're picking, you're choosing some form of gem roulette.
Yep.
Like the meta was like a combination of coin flips of your gem rouletting, and a lot of your matchups might also be coin flippy. Like you're complaining about your coin flips of play draw in the mirror. Like a lot of decks just had multiple versions of those coin flips. So it's like, if you're going to choose a gem roulette deck, might as well pick one that beats what would, I think most people would perceive to be the 2 most common decks going into this event. And they, I believe, ended up being the 2 most common new and
40%
Zen.
of the field, yeah.
Like, that's pretty reasonable. And, like, this was a different card game. Those would probably be even higher percentage. But Fab, that's just never the case. I'm going to play... we saw it with Enigma being, the 3rd most common. I'm going to play my deck. I don't care what the meta is.
Yeah, that was crazy. When we saw the stats come out, and we're like, wait, why are there just as many Enigmas as there are Prisms? This makes literally no sense.
I think the crazier part was it was tied with Prism, and then day 2 was still tied with Prism. I was like, well, that's funny.
Yeah, Shoma winning with Azuri is like such a good story, so good for the game, right? Like, brought the fringe hero. Like, she's just like new at home, right? So she's still like positioned to beat up on Zen, but still like bringing the rogue deck, getting it done. Like, it makes for such great stream games, right? And it's, I don't know, I think it's like so good overall. Congrats to him.
Yeah,
I still
that's a great
go back
story.
and watch the stream.
Yeah, the stream was good. I would not recommend bringing Azuri to big giant CC events, thinking it is the best deck in the game, though. This is a very targeted deck for a limited CC meta, in which he was, targeting multiple decks, and it paid off. For example, we had Charles and Pat. They both took another deck, Bravo, super targeted. It was favored into new. Favored in the new, you say? Yes, it had no blue attacks in the deck. So there was nothing new could actually do with your blues. Favored in the new, favored in his Zen. They each saw 1 and then lost other games and were just out of the tournament because the gamble didn't pay off, right? So that's the opposite of what can happen when you take these type of risks. But if it pays off, you win. You can win the whole tournament. So definitely a good risk. Pretty cool to see.
It was funny. I was helping teach with Pat. I was helping teach Charles's sister, right?
Yep.
There. And she was using that Bravo deck, and the whole time I'm like sitting next to her, I'm like, man, this deck sucks because all the blues are just nonsense cards. So she just kept drawing hands that just like didn't have an attack. I'm just like, man, this deck stinks.
Yep. The deck was an interesting deck, to say the least. But if they had just played more Zen and Nu, their tournament run would have been phenomenal. And that's just kind of what happens when you're trying to target like 40% of the meta. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. If I had brought Azuri, for example, I would have just played like 3 bad matchups on day 1 and been out of the tournament. Unfortunately, but it'd be what it be. I think the pick was cool. The games were great. Coverage was as great as always. Gelato was good. Yeah.
It was not good for me, but it destroyed my digestive system. But it was
plain crackers and some nuts.
I think I got the tiramisu flavor like every single day.
Yeah, I think every time I go to Europe, I'm always impressed by how much better their gelato or ice cream is than in America. They just like do it significantly better and cheaper, and so it's phenomenal. I will say. And people in Amsterdam can get mad at me. I think the food was pretty mid, at least where we were at, and it was incredibly expensive. Man, I've been to Europe 3 times now, all for Pro Tours. The other 2, all the prices made sense, or they were a little underpriced. Like at Lille and Barcelona. Here, everything was like more expensive than in the U.S., and it was just like middling quality, and I was very unimpressed by the food.
It was like more, including the fact that you're not tipping.
Yep. It was more, yes, it was more than tipping, and the drinks were just astronomical. But, that is Europe. Very weird. Other than that, city was beautiful. I think you tweeted out the venue was the best like area that we've ever been in. It was like super clean, super safe, super walkable. All that stuff was phenomenal.
I did not feel like I was going to get mugged.
Yes.
I did not feel like my car was going to get broken into again if I had brought it.
Much better than a couple of Pro Tours that we had.
For viewers that don't know, my car got broken into at Baltimore. A homeless person broke into my car and slept in it during the middle of the night. And they didn't take anything of value. They took some CDs. They left their butt wipes in what they used to clean themselves in the car. Not just like a package of them in the car. I was like, what the heck, man? And then they killed my battery by leaving the light on all night. I was like, well, now I have to deal with replacing my battery in the middle of the Pro Tour. I'm just like, it's a good thing I'm probably going to scrub out. Now I have time to do this. Yeah,
Noah,
much safer here.
What are your overall thoughts? Would you have changed to Zen? Do you think you should have brought Zen for the tournament?
Yeah. I just think in general, I want to revise my advice if I'm ever giving it to people leading up to an event. Is like, if something is just very obviously the most powerful deck, and it's not the first event of a meta, like I think there's some defense for nationals if you're not 100% confident that Zen is the best deck, like during that season, because it still was like, proving itself, establishing what the standard build looked like. But I think leading up to this tournament, it was pretty clear that either Zen or a counter to him was going to be the best choice for an event. So I think having the flexibility in your game to where you can become at least competent with a hero in 1 to 2 weeks and be able to pivot to that for an event, I think would be something at least I'm going to add to my repertoire, and I recommend that everybody else does.
Yeah, I just want to play a deck that lets me leverage knowledge I have about the game in the game.
Yeah.
That was one thing I was enjoying about Prism. I still got to retain some semblance of that, even though it does still have the elements of, well, doesn't matter. I still have to go with this hand. Like, this hand doesn't block. I just have to go.
I do think one thing, Cody, that you may be undervaluing is the skill in knowing when to block with your equipment. I noticed it a couple times in the calling, especially with my shoes into Nu, because I played against 3 of them. And the first 2, I was able to ascertain that they were 100% locking themselves into a line of play that used mask. So I was able to just block with my shoes, get the tiger, and essentially negate the value of their mask. And then also just knowing when it's correct to make a Zen state in the mirror match versus if you may, find value from using the chi offensively on your turn if you're going to survive this kind of thing. So I think the equipment is probably the biggest area of skill expression, but it's all once per game kind of stuff. So
no, I agree.
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing. I think there is skill expression, but when I come from decks like Icelander and Enigma and other things, it's like significantly less, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
I'm playing Ooga Booga, even Prism when I played that in Chain and Oldhim, like all these decks had what I would consider way more skill expression than Zen does.
I don't know. I feel like the Enigma's still pretty Ooga Booga, but I see your point.
Yeah. That was morely in deck build was where your skill expression came through in overall game plans. Yeah.
Sure. I'll agree with that.
Yep. I still think Zen's great, but you just better dodge some news and victors because and then don't play too many mirrors where you lose the dice roll. Otherwise it's just like you're just playing the top of your deck, right?
Do we know if there's going to be a ban list before Worlds? Or are we just hoping on Rosetta shaping up the meta?
I'll check
I think
last
the big
BNR
was before, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's one more.
I really hope they touch Assassin. It's getting out of hand.
What would you want to see?
I'm like joking, but also not at all. Like, man,
what would you want to see hit?
Like, come on, Codex.
Okay, fine, yeah.
No, I think Codex makes probably Assassin unplayable.
No, I actually don't have a problem with Codex. Yeah, I don't like Siren's Call.
I just want to play my cards, please.
Oh, next BNR is on my birthday, October 1st.
Right?
Nice.
Let's go.
Yeah. I think, Siren's Call and Justin Nick are like some of the more annoying cards to play around. Just, that was, I don't know, Justin Nick just being like a unique card in that it's basically the only card that can play off of just 2-card hand, play attack, play a react, and you just can't really ever know whether it's going to be a D-react that they're planning on setting or a Justin Nick, in which case you just can get blown out. So, yeah, that was Siren's Call. I agree, some of the stronger cards, but that would mean those are both Mystic, right? Or I think Justin Nick is regular Assassin, but I'm not sure that the Azuri player was using that.
Regular. He was.
Oh, he was? Okay, nice. So yeah, Justin Nick would be my bet.
He's winning games with two of them.
No, Siren's
There's
Call
a stream. There's a stream game where his win I think was like 2 Justice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Siren's Call is kind of cringe, but I don't know if it's ban worthy. It feels ban worthy sometimes.
I mean, they're making bans based on how the game feels to play, right? I don't know. I feel like they made the conscious choice to make Assassin the best.
I don't know. I still think Zen's great. Zen still invalidates a lot of games. Zen, in my opinion, is what makes the current metagame hard to play. I think Assassin is only highlighted as good because Zen keeps a million decks in check that keep the Assassins in check. Like, for example, Assassin can never beat Hatchet Dory. It's just completely free for Hatchet Dory. It's literally a 0% matchup for new. It's kind of a joke, but you can't play that deck because that just kills you no matter what you do. Then there's, the Prism's hard, but Enigma can be hard. But it's just for the most part, there's a lot of decks that Assassin is bad into, but all of those decks are kept in check by Zen.
Oh, it's kind of weird because I think Prism, from playing both Illusionist, I feel like Prism is the harder one to play into as new, and Zen doesn't really keep Prism in check. If anything, Prism was a valid pick for this tournament because of Zen. Yeah. So that's kind of a weird one there.
No, I don't disagree. I think Prism was in a good spot. I think its Zen matchup is not great, especially if they're running time skippers or beat poppers we were. I think time skippers fixed a lot of issues I was having, and then for the decks that still think that you are supposed to run Rapture into the matchup, I'm just pop, easiest game. Rapture's so easy to play against, in my opinion, as Zen. You just pop them. There's no parable shenanigans you have to worry about. All the stuff's that you have to worry about is just gone. Sweet. Okay, I do want to say it was really nice meeting everyone who came up and said hi, or told us how much they like the podcast, or how much they followed stuff about the team. Especially because they're all Europeans, which is great. It's not people that we get to interact with, all the time. When we're traveling around the US or whatever. But yeah, if you came over and sat down and chatted with us, or just came up and said hi, We definitely appreciate it. Irregardless of if we were in the middle of like think about the tournament or anything like that, if you had a conversation that was shorter than you expected or wanted it to be, I do apologize, but it's like it was not intended. We're just like sometimes we're just focusing, right? But for everyone else that I got to chat with, and I got to chat with a lot of people for a very long time, it was absolutely great. Especially when I was doing side events, that was super fun thing to do because I was a side event boy on day 3 as well.
Unlucky.
Okay, so let's go into some podcast questions. These questions are asked by premium members of our Discord. If you would like to be able to ask questions on the podcast, look at videos that we put out every single month, find people to practice with on the upcoming events, join the Discord below. The first person to talk about is Renzo, who I got to meet. So I have a face. I can go with the name now. And it says, his question is on testing. Do you have some base strats that you test into every game, like trying to fatigue, trying to full aggro, trying to mid range? Do you vary up strategies when you're testing is kind of the question. And then he did mention this when I met him in Amsterdam, that he was wondering if we knew how many questions he'd asked in total since he's been a member. And it's a lot, but I do not have that exact number. But in testing,
the short answer is yes.
Yeah.
Is he asking like strategies that we play into?
I think he's saying for like matchup solving.
Yeah, matchup solving.
It's like, yeah. So I think usually like I'm starting, like if I'm working on one matchup, I start with like play the default style of playing the deck, right? And if clearly there's some issues there, you try and work out like what can I do alternatively? And usually the alternatives are like play defensive and slow and play towards like some combo or to full fatigue. Or it's like it's always some kind of drastic change that I do, and then you kind of like meet in the middle or wherever the like optimal point is. So like every time I test against boost dash comes to mind, right? It's like if they're out racing me, I'm just gonna block and see how that goes, and if it works, I ship it.
Yeah, Zen has a lot of those matchups that are all 3, basically.
Yeah.
I think boost dash and Azalea too are ones that come to mind where sometimes you test being super defensive, being super aggressive. I know that's something that I came to with my KO strategy was like I essentially adopted these game plans into some matchups where I would want to just be defensive, blocking with 2 to 3 cards, then just playing super high impact disruptive cards as like my only real attacks when I'm attacking. And this was like a strategy that I came to after trying the full gamut of all those options of fatigue versus aggro versus the mid range. So I think you could kind of understand what your opponent is most likely going to try to do to win the game, and if you can adjust your play to counteract that, then it makes sense. One thing I also try to do is have like a stack. This is easier to do IRL. It's kind of hard to do online, but I just have a stack of like 100 cards. And then I just say, okay, well, what if my deck looked like this in this matchup? Try that out. And then see how much overlap I have between all the matchups to say, okay, this is what ends up making the final 80 based on how I prefer to play against each of the more common matchups.
I'll do that sometimes when I'm like struggling with a matchup. I'll just like make a separate February link where I'm just going to make 60 cards for this matchup, 65 with equipment or whatever. I don't care what my deck is supposed to actually look like for the tournament. Just what would I actually want to sit down and have as my perfect 60 for this matchup and just blow up the deck.
Yeah, the original Zen list we were going to play before the bans is literally called Zen-Beat the New.
And guess what? It beat the new.
That's how it got there. And it beat the new.
Sometimes it doesn't work, though, because I built an Enigma deck that sole purpose was to beat Zen. They didn't care about anything else in the game. It still can't beat Zen.
and then you take it all out and just sack it.
Yep. Then you just sack it, or you just put the deck on the shelf and say, no, get out of here.
And then you face 3 Zens in a row at Nationals and go play the calling.
Next question from Billy P says, what is the best way to level up in Limited? Jamming drafts in the Runaways Discord feels like it got him to a spot where he could 2-1 pods, but he wasn't sure how to reach the next terms into deck building, pick orders, developing draft strategies. And then asks if we would consider running a paid draft boot camp for viewers.
I think one thing that helped me a lot was trying to understand like how differentiating how I'm winning games in this format or whatever the given format is comparatively to other formats. Like, am I winning games because I am out blocking my opponent? So like heavy hitters, it's like 3-block slam. Like I just want to take all the class cards, block better than my opponent. I just want to have just a very smooth deck where I'm just getting 3 per card for a lot of my stuff. Where, like, for example, this format, maybe I'm winning the game because my deck is very high synergy and I have lots of cards that combo with each other to let me play my whole hand on offense. So, like, that could be one thing, too, where it's just like, is the format about spending your cards on offense versus spending them on defense? Some formats, you have lent themselves more towards blocking far more, where you're just trying to play, like, 2-card hands, where this format, I feel like there's a lot of spots where you're just supposed to play like big hands. So it's like identifying what matters in the format and how you're trying to win, and that can inform how you're supposed to draft. Because then once you know how you're winning, your pick order is going to change.
Yeah, I think one aspect too that maybe it was you, Dan, who said this. I'm not 100% sure, so feel free to just take credit even if it wasn't you. Is when you're looking at a given pack. And say it's like you're somewhere in pack 2, you're in the set, you're drafting Ninja, and you still don't have the either like the shoes or the hats. One of the crucial equipment pieces that you really know that if you're going to be throwing this pod with Ninja, it's most likely going to include one of these. Then you may have to say, okay, maybe I don't take this super powerful generic card because I know that a 3-0 deck has to include one of these super key pieces of equipment in this example. So this is like something I just prioritize. I maybe throw out any other rankings I have assigned to cards because I know I'm just not likely to 3-0 if I don't have this super key piece in my deck.
Yeah, that was like really common in Monarch, where it's like Halo, for example, like your Prism deck just needed that to 3-0. Sorry, Dan.
Yeah, you're good. My biggest tip for like leveling up is to put more emphasis on like studying and analyzing the format over playing. Like so you can identify like what Noah's saying there, like study the cards, kind of get a feel for like what they do, how they interact. Study like you're in our Discord, study the 3-0 lists. Like you see patterns. Like we have someone, I apologize, I don't know their name, but he did like a public analysis for everyone that's like pretty detailed on the commonly occurring cards in 3-0 lists and that kind of thing. Like for this set, for example, it is pretty clear like which cards lead to winning deck lists. Like it's the bomb equipment, it's a couple bomb commons. Like spend the time to like look at these things and like after your drafts, review the draft logs, study the behaviors of everyone in your pod. Just so you like start to learn tendencies and can look for those trends. Study like your own tendencies, right? Like record your games, watch them back, see where you're making mistakes, that kind of thing. Send them to a friend. Lots of room to improve always, right?
Yeah, I think
like after sorry. Like after when I'm starting off in the format, I'll usually look at least the first pack of everyone in my pod after I'm done doing the draft games. Give me an idea of like what decisions other people are making.
Yep, for sure. I also think identify the type of draft that it is. Is it a draft the best cards draft where you're just for the first like pack like we've had, you're just picking all the best cards in the pack? Is it I need to lock in my deck by pick 3 type of format? Then figuring out how to do that. I also really like try to find alternative ways to draft that other people are not doing, or that people are not prioritizing highly enough. I think we saw some people doing that at like Nationals where they were just like the whole Mystic deck. Like people were like afraid of Mystic cards at Nationals drafting, and just people just showed up and they're like, I'm taking every Mystic card that I see for the first 2 packs and then we'll figure it out later. And they had pretty good success doing that. So finding stuff like that is like a way to remove some of the the risk in your draft if you're just doing something what you know other people aren't going to value. I think like one of those things, like in past format, it was like spring loaded. It was like for some reason tabling in a bunch of drafts that we were at. We're just like, this is like a first pick card, and we're just like, give me every single pocket snake that you have, which is great.
I missed that card.
I missed that card.
Wait,
Okay.
one more thing to add too.
Yeah.
This is like not exactly what Billy was looking for in terms of an answer. We're talking about just deck building, but I think if I reflect on drafts that I've 3-0'd versus 2-1'd, often like some of the 3-0 decks weren't actually tangibly better, but I like somehow scammed my opponent during the match. So having either that element of like a bomb card that if it just lines up wins you the game, as well as like paying attention to, especially now that I'm assuming moving forward it's all going to be 30 cards, but since we were in like this 30 card format, you can pretty reasonably look at your enigma and new opponents to say like, okay, do they have astral etchings I need to be careful for in second cycle, or what kind of reacts has my new been pitching, and being able to essentially know your opponent's entire hand in the end game, because outside of Zen there's not really like shuffling, and it's you're both playing 30 cards. I think that's another like level up to try to like win games you maybe shouldn't have won.
That actually just reminded me of something. This is something I started doing after Nationals last year. The something that Charles said about one of his draft decks just like made me think about playing the game more like this, where after I finish a draft and I do like my deck registration and everything, I'll then kind of like line up cards that need to go with each other. So it's like I have double trouble. Good example. I had 2 red double troubles in my draft deck for day 1 at the Pro Tour. I then went through my deck and went, okay, what cards actually go with these double troubles? Okay, I have a red hiss, I have a red venomous bite, and I have boots. These are the only 3 things that go with it. So then when I see these cards, I know they have to pair together, otherwise I lose a lot of value. So then it changes my planning of how I block, how I pitch, and how I utilize my arsenal. Another example would be like maybe you have the go again boots, either the mystic or the assassin ones, and you have one of the 2-cost mystic gets +2 things, and you don't have good ways to transcend in your deck. So you go, okay, I know when I see my chi and I see this mystic card, they need to go together. So when I see one, I have to set it and wait for the other one to come around. So that way it's not oopsing into these turns, it's planning them out. And it's like a normal thing you would do for a CC deck, but I just like didn't find myself thinking about that as much for draft up until Nationals last year. And I've made a much more conscious effort of doing that. I've noticed a big improvement.
Yeah, especially this format, which kind of leads itself to allowing you to do that because it's a little less high octane than some other formats that we were in. Like you couldn't really do that against like good KO drafts in the last format. They'd like run you over if you're like trying to be like, I'm gonna go inefficient and set this card and wait for another card to come around. You're just like they just like run you over. That one was more like you got to battle with what you got. But this format was great for doing that because it basically just like whoever found the funny turn kind of won. But you had to craft your funny turn most of the time.
And that might mean you're just not supposed to arsenal cards sometimes too, where it's like, I know the way I'm winning this game is me doing this plus this. So me setting this 3rd card doesn't actually advance that game plan. So, I should just block with it. So that way my arsenal's open when I find one of these cards.
Yep. That's a good point. Ronco asks, what's the first story that comes to mind about Amsterdam?
I'll try and think of the second one. First one is I got food
Trying to convince Brody that Codex of Inertia is just pot of greed.
And him not listening to the point where he decided not to play Lexi at LL because he didn't want to admit that Codex of Inertia was good.
I did not know that part.
Yeah. He didn't even play it. He didn't even play it in LL.
Clown.
Good one.
Yeah, just like all 3 of us are just like screaming at him at the middle of the night, being like, it's just pot of greed. And then he like juices the heck out of Lucas playing it in his deck. And like it 3-for-1s him like 2 turns in a row. And he's like, I still don't know about this card. It's like, you just 3-for-1'd him. What do you want?
Yeah, not a lot of good stories this time around.
Yeah,
Nothing crazy happened on our side.
Yeah, we're basically just playing the tournament, going out to eat, playing games in the lobby of the hotel, going to bed way too late.
Some of that.
Yeah.
Dalton asks, why didn't we eat more ice cream in Amsterdam? And what is the worst card that has ever seriously been registered for the Pro Tour, and why is it Seismic Stir Blue?
I only skipped ice cream once to have respect for the other people on the plane later.
To be fair, you actually had ice cream that day.
I did. I skipped second ice cream.
You skipped second ice cream.
Yeah. Actually, I guess I could tell the one story about ice cream now that.
Oh, yeah. That
these
is
two are
actually a
paired.
good story.
Yeah. So the first night, I think this is Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday night we get there. I flew in like Tuesday, got there Wednesday. Took a nap in the middle of the day, and then we were just chilling. I was fretting about my decision to play this nonsense roll dice, man. And we go out for ice cream. There's only one place open because it's like 10:45ish at night, and we get there. We order ice cream. I'm the first one ordering the ice cream because I'm like super excited. It looks like fantastic. And they have, in the Netherlands, they have like, they're famous for stroop waffles. So I was like, all right, I'm really prepared for this waffle cone to be amazing because it seemed like it was made from like the similar ingredients. So I order my mint chocolate chip and a cone, and I go to pay. And it's like a normal card reader. So I'm like, okay, I try one card. She's like, oh, no, sorry, we don't take Amex. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. So I try another card. She's like, oh, no, we don't take any American cards. I was like, okay, like, it's very clear I speak with an American accent. Why did you not think to bring this up earlier? She's like, oh, do you have euros? I was like, no. She's like, all right, well, if you go around the block, there's an ATM. So I go to like step away, but I'm like pausing because I'm like, well, I don't want to leave my ice cream here because it's going to melt, surely. So she's like, okay, yeah, you just take the ice cream. So I take the ice cream and we go to the ATM, and apparently the ATM just like has to take a nap or something. I never heard of like ATMs closing. It just didn't want to give away any more money for the day. So we get to the ATM. It's like, no, sorry, no service. So I'm like, well, I'm really enjoying this ice cream. I want to make sure I have a good relationship with the lady who's going to be selling the ice cream for the next week. So we go, I look on my phone. I try to find, okay, there's another ATM theoretically. So we walk like another half a mile. I definitely lied about how far it was, by the way, because I was like, all right, I know people are not going to be down for just me to walk to this ATM that may or may not exist. And so we get there, and I peer inside a closed grocery store at a sad ATM inside. So none of their ATMs wanted to get their money. Really tragic. And so by that time, I'd basically already finished my ice cream. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll just go tomorrow and pay. So then we showed up at a more reasonable time tomorrow. The first ATM was back and ready to produce money. So we were able to get money from there. And I just...
You were distraught about...
Yeah.
Not paying her.
I couldn't sleep that whole night.
Like,
I was like,
I don't want
this. Out of $4. How will I ever fix this problem?
I can't have this negative karma going into dice roll man time.
Yeah.
But you did pay.
I did pay, yes.
And they were very shocked.
Yeah, she was very surprised that I came back, and I was like, well, ice cream is really good, so yeah, I had to come back. And I bought a bigger size next time because I felt bad.
Do you want to talk about your other negative karma story?
No, we don't need to talk about that. That does not need to be posted online. It's okay.
Matifs asks, off the back of the results of Pro Tour, if you were to bring a deck to a Tier 3 event, what heroes feels the best right now? What would you bring if there's a Tier 3 event tomorrow? Or next week, or 2 weeks from now?
Yeah, I think it has to be Zen, New, Prism, or Missouri. Yeah.
I think Prism's reasonable.
After this weekend, I think Prism's just like the deck. Like, you beat New, you beat Zen, I think about 50% of the time, if not slightly more, if they're not time skippers. If all the Zens switch over to time skippers, I'm no Prism.
Do you actually, like, I don't know, man.
It's just math.
I feel so
like,
favored as Zen, but I am
it's
playing
just
time
math.
skippers.
Like if I'm roughly 50% to find an Arclight, and I win every game I see Arclight with my Erudition, then I'm 50% to win the game. If I'm coin flipping into the best deck, then okay, I'll take that, and I beat the second best deck. Like, I've just never lost a game I've resolved an Arclight into Zen.
Until time skippers.
Until time, I concede that if they're time skippers, I don't want to be Prism. I concede that.
Yep. You hear that, everyone? Get your time skippers. Load them up. All the Zens out there, just pack time skippers, play them into every Prism. It'll be great. They're gone. They're done. You heard it here first. With that said, I did play time skippers and it was great. So I would probably play new, to be fair. I want a little bit more interaction. And I'm a little sick of Zen. Personally. Though he keeps pulling me back. I play other decks and I go, yeah,
That's the issue. It's just
better
like
than
they're
this
not
deck.
they're not close, and then you lose to Zen. You're like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
That's why
No.
I thought I was playing KO too, but I just couldn't.
Yeah, you were on a lot of
Yeah,
stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, like the only thing pushing me off of Prism would be Enigma, KO, or regular Dash. And those are all still games. Like, you're not just like 0% in those games. You're just like a little behind. So very winnable. And like, of course, Zen playing time skippers.
Yes.
With also an egregious amount of poppers.
Yep, like 8 of them. Like, maybe the deck list that Charles won with is pretty good. It has all those things.
I was doubting, man. This is my worst CC event I ever had at a tier 3 or higher.
Maybe check out the channel later for a deck profile. Maybe.
Perhaps.
Someone should do that.
Maybe.
Someone should do that.
We'll see. But I think that's everything. Let's go. I think we're still a little tired from Amsterdam. Maybe I'll try and see if I can convince Charles to come on here and talk about how he won and he's the best calling player ever. And
Where's the question from Cusco? Where's the question from Cusco?
There's no Cusco this week. It's gone.
What the heck? You
Goodbye, everyone.
I don't know Cusco.
So long. No Cusco. Bye-bye.
Yeah, we're getting rid of the envelope
7
here, but
envelope
What we could do
in
here is go
darkness.
ahead and play the envelope.
All 3 pitches of envelope and darkness.